When a crime happens in broad daylight, we expect a swift resolution. If a bystander witnesses an abduction, memorizes the license plate, and immediately calls 911, logic dictates the victim will be rescued within hours. But on March 15, 1989, that exact sequence of events played out in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and 15-year-old Tonetta Carlisle still vanished. Tonetta was a high school freshman. She stood just 5 feet 1 inch tall. Like many teenagers in the late 80s, she loved fast food and spent her free time listening to pop and rap music, especially the singer Bobby Brown. At 2:55 p.m., the school bell rang, and Tonetta began her typical 20-minute walk home from City High School. 5 minutes later, she was just half a block from her own front door. A witness looking down the hill from Ruth Street saw a tan and yellow van pull up. Several people jumped out, grabbed the teenager, and forced her into the back of the vehicle. The witness and her husband reacted perfectly. They jumped into their own car, chased the van, wrote down the exact Tennessee license plate number, LKH920, and called the authorities right away. The public delivered the perfect clue, but a flawless tip is useless when the system receiving it is broken. Tonetta hasn't been seen in over 30 years. In 1989, police departments ran on paper records and analog dispatch systems. This created information silos, isolated databases where one shift collects critical information but has no way to share it instantly with the rest of the agency. Because of these silos, the investigation split into 2 separate tracks. Track A began at 3 p.m., when dispatch logged the witness's report of a violent abduction involving a yellow van. Track B started 8 hours later. At 11 p.m., Tonetta's mother, Noni, called 911 to report her daughter missing after she failed to return from school. Looking at a map of the neighborhood, the failure to connect these dots seems impossible. The abduction site on Ruth Street was a mere half block from Tonetta's front door on Hamilton Avenue, yet the report sat unlinked. In missing persons cases, the first 48 hours are critical. As time passes, the search area expands while evidence degrades. For 2 full days, the abduction report and the missing child report sat isolated in their respective silos. The clock ran out while the connections were waiting to be made. A tragic failure of basic bureaucratic communication proved to be a deadlier enemy in this investigation than any criminal mastermind. On March 18th, investigators finally connected the 2 files. They ran the witness's license plate, LKH920, and finally had a name. The van belonged to Jeffrey Jones. He was a convicted rapist who had served 8 years in prison and had been released only a year before Tonetta disappeared. Heavily armed officers and bloodhounds rushed to locate Jones and his van. It was now 48 hours after the abduction. When they arrived, they found the van, but Jones was already dead. He had committed suicide by carbon monoxide poisoning. Jones left no suicide note. Tonetta was gone, and extensive searches of the area yielded 0 physical evidence. Jones's suicide ended the rescue mission and left behind an unsolvable puzzle, robbing the family of both their daughter and the truth. Since 1989, Tonetta's mother and brother have lived in the void of ambiguous loss, a psychological state where grief is frozen because there is no finality. In the absence of facts, divergent theories emerged. Some tips suggested Tonetta was trafficked to a prostitution ring in California. Her mother holds a different, heartbreaking conviction that Tonetta fought back, was killed by Jones, and remains buried somewhere in the local Chattanooga area. In 2019, the Chattanooga District Attorney's Cold Case Unit reopened the investigation, focusing their efforts entirely back on Jeffrey Jones. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has released age-progressed photos showing the public what Tonetta might look like today in her early 50s. A systemic communication failure doomed the search for Tonetta in 1989, but solving the case today relies entirely on public awareness. If you have any information, contact the Chattanooga Police Department.